Hey guys, so it's Monday, so it's time for yet another edition of the Breakfast Club with me in it. So, and please excuse the background noise, got the window open, but it's the only way to let air in here, so. Anyway, I guess I'm going to be talking about Trump again. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about it. But there's something that's been occurring to me lately, well, for quite some time now, and I guess now should be the time for me to bring it up. And it's on expectations when certain people show up, in power in a certain position. I remember back when Obama became president, or like just before he became president, and all the talking points that I was hearing from right wing pundits on what people might have to expect if he becomes president. I mean, there was the usual stuff of, okay, well, he's a Democrat, so, the spending's going to go through the roof. They're always overspending, they're always over budget. They're about big government, so there's going to be overreach. But there was also some interesting talk about how, well, let's not sugarcoat it, how black people would react if he became president. I distinctly remember certain talk show pundits saying that things are going to be very dangerous for white people if Obama became president, because black people are going to suddenly see that as carte blanche to start bullying white people because now there's a black guy in charge. And for anybody who's thinking that I'm making this up, I invite you to go back, if you can find old recordings of old radio show stuff or old articles that were written during that time. I remember guys like Rush Limbaugh. I'm mixing up letters. I remember guys like him going and saying, expressing fear that, the kids might be bullying white kids on the bus over this, or there might be altercations in the streets or in jobs and things like that. This was something that was expressed. And by the way, considering the overtones of such a belief, if anybody's I think that should be another signification that, racist thought didn't just suddenly pop up because Trump showed up. I mean, come on now. I've been living in this country a while, and this is something that's always been here. It's just, we'll get into that. This is sort of what the subject's about, today's topic. But yeah, these were things that were expressed, fears that were expressed. Well, Obama became president. He was president for 8 years. And in that time, there was no huge outbreak of black people suddenly going around beating white people up or shooting them. There weren't sudden, radical black groups that were out to completely kill off white people. They weren't, making protests about how they were going to, take over or how they were superior. There was no huge outbreak of that. None like that happened. Then Trump shows up. He becomes president. He hasn't even been president for a full 2 years yet. And all these racial tensions are coming out the window. In fact, it's kind of funny. The things that people were saying were going to happen when Obama became president, they didn't happen. But these things are happening now that Trump is president, but it's a different group of people doing the stuff. It's a different group of people now coming out the woodwork saying racist things, to black people, to Asians, to Hispanics. Seeing all these altercations, like people now, filming, just boldly saying, oh, I don't want these niggas here, I don't want this here. Like just saying, just coming out the woodwork, just spewing all the stuff that they held out inside. And that amuses me. Some people are going to go around saying, throwing out the hypocrite label, which I think could be a bit apt, but I think it's something a little different than that. What I think was going on before Obama became elected, the sentiment that was expressed before he became elected, wasn't something that came from, something that would later on turn into hypocrisy. I honestly think it was an expression of what was going on within their own selves. In other words, what we were looking at was an early form of projection. I've noticed time and time again that people with certain negative inclinations always end up reflecting that inclination on somebody else. They always suspect that other person of doing what they themselves either want to do or are very capable of doing. Very quick, the instant go, that person's going to do this. Like, you know, sometimes, like, for example, when you're dealing with certain criminal enterprises and, like, there might be a possible, you know, border dispute, like, this is my territory, your territory, and there's some such a territorial dispute or some business thing that's going on. And, you know, the criminal guy will be like, okay, I need to get the jump on that guy because if I don't, he's going to get the jump on me. The other guy probably has no intention of doing that. I mean, you don't know for sure unless you're actually able to spy on them or get some intelligence or whatever. But it was always that feeling of, okay, yo, I need to make a hit on him before he makes a hit on me because he's getting powerful. But sooner or later, it'll slip up because that's what I would do. The more honest ones will come out and go, yeah, I know he's going to get the jump on me because if I was in his position, that's what I would do. Right? Military leaders sometimes will say things like that. Business leaders will sometimes say things like that. Yo, we need to make this. We need to take over that company now, or we need to, we need to make a move on this product now, or take over the market this way. Because if we don't, somebody else is going to get the jump on it first. That's that thinking. And so that's the excuse that they'll make to then go and do their own devilishment or whatever schemes they got. They throw that bit of projection, and who knows? Maybe they're right. There's certain instances where you are in a rather, cutthroat enterprise where everyone around you is a piece of shit, and so therefore you want to be the biggest one, right? But many times you'll also see this being done by people who are just straight up, dishonest, unpleasant people who they suspect the worst out of everyone around them because they themselves do those things. That's how they think. That's how they function. And so when they see somebody else in a position that they know that if they were in it, they would screw you over, they immediately go, oh, you can't let this happen because they're going to... And then later on it turns out that since that other person isn't the scum of the earth, that's not how they would react. That didn't even occur to them. When Obama was president, and I'm not saying this is... Again, I had some issues with him myself, and not the same reasons they did. My problem was that he just ended up being yet another politician. Say what you want about him, and yes, he was a lot more intelligent than the guy we have now. Yes, there were certain things he put in place that ultimately was supposed to help out the common person in the United States, but honestly I felt that he didn't go far enough, and his imperialistic policies were pretty much the same as the other guys before him. I don't really want to get into here. This video is not specifically about him, but I'm bringing that up just so so people won't think that I'm just like, oh, I love Obama. I got problems with all the politicians. Anyway, when he showed up, black people were just happy that there was finally, it was a symbolic thing for them. It wasn't an instrument for them to then go and do their own devilishment, for the most part. I can't speak for every single last person there, but I do remember, there was no huge outbreaks in the news. There was never a moment of oh my God, they just made things worse for us. I never really got that sentiment. You didn't see black people going to the extremes that we're seeing certain elements in the right wing doing now that Trump is president. And this goes along with what I said before. Certain people with certain negative things within themselves going, oh, we can't let that happen because they're going to do this. Because what they're really thinking is, if I was in their position, that's what I would do. And now they are in that position. And it's exactly what they're doing. They see somebody, a loudmouth, basically spewing all the bile that's within themselves. Now they see that as an excuse to go and act on it. And then they'll say that other people, they do the same thing, but we got a history of not doing that. There's a history of other people just mildly, they're happy that there's somebody who's expressing their views or is, who might actually, put certain laws or certain things in effect that they think will help everybody else, not just themselves. And so they just go along being civil. And these cats, apparently, they can't seem to do that. They can't be civil. They're like, yep, this country's mine now, so now I can kick out these undesirables. That's what they're thinking. That's what they're doing. And what gets me is that this is not the first time this has happened. If you really think about it, if you go back I mean, I'm not saying this is not the first time. I mean, to this scale, it's debatable. But in terms of, certain unpleasant people, people with certain unpleasant views, suddenly getting a little bit of power, suddenly getting a little, like, boldness in them. What comes out of them, their actions, their deeds, says a lot. And you see this happen again and again. The same type of people, when they think they're suddenly going to, whether they're motivated through anger, whether they're motivated because they feel that there's something behind them backing them up, instead of doing things that would actually make people go, okay, maybe they got a point, or maybe these people aren't as bad as we thought. No, they then show you the worst that that they have to offer. But then they'll turn around and say, oh no, these guys are doing that. These guys are the ones who are causing the trouble. And if you're paying attention, realize that's not the case. It's always them. You let all these Arabs in, there could be a whole bunch of terrorism going on. And yet most terrorist acts done in the United States are not done by Muslims. Look at the statistics, you know who's doing it. It's not them. This is stuff that you guys have. I'm now preaching to the choir here. You guys know this is nothing new. What I'm saying is really nothing new. In terms of they're blaming other groups, but then when you look at the one group that they represent, a lot of the devilishment is happening on their side of the fence, but they'll ignore it. Hell, just yesterday, there was a shooting in Florida, and it was. Sad to say, it was some white guy. We don't know why he did it. We don't know what his motivations were. We can only suspect because he killed himself, which unfortunately seems to be also part of the narrative whenever these shootings happen. But we all know, if it was any of the usual groups that people think, if it was a Muslim dude, we'd be hearing about how we can't let them in the country. If it was a Hispanic dude, we'd be hearing about how we need to get that wall up. If it was a black guy, then we'd be hearing the usual BS about how they're just inherently violent. But it wasn't. Because they're usually not the ones who end up shooting up public places. It's not, it's not the thing that you normally see. It's not the norm. It happens every now and then. I remember that one black guy who was, that one ex-military dude several years back, I believe it was in Washington. He was shooting, from a tower, sniping at people before they had to bring him in. Him and I believe his nephew. And I remember that being an odd, people were going, that's an odd case. For one thing, it was horrible, the guy shooting it, from the highway from there. But also people were going odd because I was a black dude. Most people were expecting it to be a white guy. And that in itself speaks volumes on how often it is that a minority type person does this sort of thing in the United States. Now, I know what I'm saying is definitely going to be taken as very racially motivated, racially charged. I understand the risk of putting out a video like this, but it's not my intention to try to say, oh, you see, white people are the problem, because it's not. White people are not the problem. It's the ideology and the culture that's the problem. It's the ignorance that's the problem. It's the hypocrisy that's the problem. And it's the whole trying to cast your own particular sins on another group of people that's the problem. Trying to go off, on certain, should I say misconceptions on another group of people and perpetuating that in order to continue your own damage and then denying the damage that you yourself are causing. It's amazing to me that just 10 years prior, and I know that may seem like a very long time to a group of people, but it's not really all that long. It's not that long ago. When you think about the climate that people were terrified of, and even during Obama's presidency, this whole thing of black people are going to do this now, they're going to do that now, and it didn't happen. You'd think somebody with a conscience or a group of people would go, maybe I might need to rethink this. Or, they're behaving better than I thought. Then when they get their chance, now we got our guy in power. You'd think that they would go out of their way to prove that they're even better. That, you see, now that he's in charge, things are going to be even more civil. Things are going to be even more peaceful, more orderly. The whole Make America Great Again was supposed to be a good time for everybody involved. Not people getting so mad that they run over other motherfuckers with their car in the middle of a protest. Not constant little videos people are taking on their phones showing some person yelling out racial slurs against another particular person just because they're angry, or just because, you hit them with your car, you're pissed off, you got caught, so now you're going to be calling them racial slurs. And I didn't just come to that with that the back of my head. That just popped up on my feed today. There, I can go on a whole lot of different tangents from this, but it's already been 15 minutes. The main thing I just want to bring an issue on is that it's just, once again, it's funny to me how you've got people on the right wing screaming that there's going to be chaos if they don't get their way. That the people that they have a problem with are going to make things worse for everybody else if they don't get their way. And you don't see that happen. But then when they do get their way, instead of doing things that prove the point that, oh, we're the more moral ones, they then go and do all the things that they said the other group was going to do. And then come up with excuses when this is pointed out to them. I don't know how much longer people are going to put up with this, or why they've allowed this sort of BS to go on. But I think enough is enough. Sooner or later, people are going to have to hold these guys accountable for the rhetoric they spew, and how they then do the very thing that they try to accuse other people of doing. Just saying. I hope I can get to talk about a different topic next week. Catch you guys later.